What's worse than biting into an Apple phone and finding a Yeerk? Biting into an Apple phone and finding half a Yeerk. So, we start with the conclusion of Face Off, once again not to be confused with the movie Face Off, where Nicolas Cage morphs into John Travolta and John Travolta morphs into Nicolas Cage. It is actually not in the Animorphs universe, but it's the conclusion to the three-part and apparently two-season spanning Face Off mini-series event. If anybody knows firsthand or off the top of your head if the word yeerked, as in a verb, yeerk, to yeerk, yeerked, she hasn't been yeerked. If the word yeerked appears in the books, comment and let me know for sure, because I don't remember it, but I feel like it should. The Yeerk pool in this final segment is a pretty creepy set. I think the sets were getting better as it went along, this series. It's interesting that when Rachel morphs, two things about when Rachel morphs into a Yeerk and goes into Tobias's head, the trying not to control him is an interesting thing to play, and also it's kind of touching and exemplifies trust or whatever, that she goes into his head, and then at the end of that episode, even though Yeerks can learn so much so fast by invading the brain, she doesn't, it's still a question for her. The will they, won't they is still hypothetical in both of their minds. Like, she's not, well, he definitely wants me, so I can move in, and unless we don't believe her, but I believe her. And I guess they're kind of connected. She was trying not to control him, concentrating hard on not controlling him, and which in itself froze his body. But then also that might be related to she didn't see the secrets. This doesn't happen in the books, so hard to think of what to compare it to. I can't. Cassie morphs into her Yeerk and takes over Axe's brain so that she can guide. Or no, she doesn't. The rogue Yeerk goes into Axe's brain, so Cassie doesn't. She turns into a Yeerk to go and find in the Yeerk pool the rogue Yeerk, and then a Yeerk goes into her head, the same Yeerk, the rogue Yeerk, in number 19, but we don't get that from her perspective. It switches to Jake's at that point. So this is it's an interesting thing to explore, not necessarily in the movies because it's not in the books, so why put it in the movies, but we'll see what they do. They're kind of inconsistent thought-speak rules, but they're kind of inconsistent in the books too, and it doesn't need to be consistent. It should serve the plot, but for one thing, Tobias speaks out loud to communicate with Rachel while she's in his head, which might again be connected to her trying not to control him and not learning any of his secrets. But he doesn't need to. He just needs to think. But for the cameras, for cinematic reasons, I guess I hope there's not too much complaining if they do that in the movies, even though they don't have to, because it is more with books. It's one thing, but on screen you kind of want to see the actors say their lines, even though it could be interesting to watch a thought speak, hear a thought speak conversation while watching a blank face if they're trying to blend in. Axe communicates through thought speak as a human in multiple episodes, but that's also it's cheaper to have. It's probably less complicated to have the human actor there than the human actor in a costume, or whoever wore that Axe costume. The Axe costume, very cute. The face, such a cute Andalite. I think that's how they're described in the books too. Like, he'd be cute if he didn't look so dangerous, and if it weren't for the stalk eyes. dying Yeerks are gross. I wrote that. Another instance of they caught an Andalite, but they didn't infest him right away. Maybe that's the same in the books. Maybe they capture the Andalites in the books and they don't infest them right away. I don't recall specifically. Let's see. I think it was this episode or one of the other episodes. I'm only doing the three first episodes of season 2 where Marco does a running commentary, and it's very amusing. Very Marco. The most Marco that he's been the whole series. This episode ends, Face Off Part 3 ends with Victor Trent being wanted. And I definitely know that that didn't happen in the Animorphs books, that Victor Trent, Visser 3's human form, is a criminal, because then Visser 3 has to find a new human form, or I guess they rig the courts and Victor Trent is found innocent. Maybe we'd just assume that's what happens. But at the end of the episode, the TV says Victor Trent is a wanted man, which seems like counterintuitive. Marco uses "I saved the world" as a pickup line, and it's another instance of it's funny, but if the person he's trying to pick up is a Yeerk, they might infer something from that. And at the end of the episode, Marco and Jake have a little Luke Skywalker Han Solo moment of I saved you more than you saved me, and that's fun. Let's see. Oh, that book, that episode. It says on Wikipedia, based on this book, apart from the Tobias, am I a hawk, am I a human thing, I did not see any other connections. But the next episode, My Name is Eric, not the android. They have perfectly good titles that they can put on these things, and they put different titles, which are sometimes the titles of other books than the books that they're adapting into episodes, and it's confusing. They could have called it The Android. They called it My Name is Eric, but it's not narrated by Eric. It doesn't start, My name is Eric. I have been watching the Animorphs. I know I figured out their secret. I was a garbage can, and they revealed their secret. But this is not my copy of the book, but I just seeing it always reminds me. I got it earlier than I thought I would when it came out. I don't know how stores decide when to put things out, but I think that your bigger stores have to go by the rules of it's out on the day that it's out. A small bookshop called The Golden Notebook up in Woodstock. That's where I was. I was still reading number 9, which is The Threat. Let's see if Number 9 is called The Secret. Darn, I got that wrong. Shame on me. But I was still reading The Secret while we were visiting Woodstock when I saw this in the bookstore, and I was so excited. It's a good episode too. Now Eric is played by he's other than Visser 3, he's the other Harriet the Spy actor. The actor's name, I want to make sure that I am looking at it. I won't necessarily pronounce it right, but I want to make sure that I'm looking at it. Dov Tiefenbach. He plays the boy with the purple socks in Harriet the Spy. And he also plays, and you don't necessarily have any frame of reference for that, but if you watch The Umbrella Academy, which is a much more recent thing for me to be referring to, he plays a character called Kichi. And I did watch The Umbrella Academy, and I have no idea who Kichi is. I think he's one of the Russian thugs or something like that. So anyway, that's just another fun connection. He's also a musician. But yes, a man of mystery. And Eric is, I think that's how Harriet refers to the boy with the purple socks. And Eric is the most mysterious character, the kind of most, I know way more than I'm revealing performance. Really well cast. um, in this episode. I don't know if I wrote down any of his lines, but there were some good ones. But at the beginning of the episode, Marco is dreaming that he's being attacked by something, and it sounds like a Hork-Bajir, but when you see it come at him, my first thought was the Drode. If you can go and look at the episode and see what you think of that monster. It's not outside of the realm of possibility that the Drode would invade his dreams, considering that the Krayek does that. So anyway, that's that. Again, for budget reasons and all sorts of things like that, Axe is usually in human morph, and he lives in Cassie's barn instead of a scoop that he makes out in the woods. And I get that. But the thing where he gets more channels on his television is less impressive in Cassie's barn, because they could just string the cable from the house and they could just do that. They could solve that problem. I forget exactly how he does it in the scoop, but I think it's more impressive. Speaking of Cassie and her barn, I haven't been paying that much attention, but I don't think she ever wears jeans in the show, and that's her trademark, is baggy, dirty jeans in the books. She's doesn't care about how she looks, and again, it's a kids' TV show, and she's playing a teenager. They want to get teenagers interested. They're going to make her look fashionable, but a bright white shirt, dress shirt, that she's wearing in the barn, while I think caring for some animal, it's so not Cassie. And the performance, Nadia Nascimento, pretty Cassie. More Cassie than some of the other actors are in their characters. But the way that she dresses, this is in the movies. Don't put the fashion stuff on Rachel, and let Cassie be Cassie. It's much more interesting. Let's see. The dog, and this often happens, probably for very obvious reasons, when something has to be hit by a car in a TV show or movie. It looks very much like that thing could easily get out of the way of the car, or like the car could easily stop before it gets to it, because you gotta cut back and forth between the thing that's going to get hit and the car and make it dramatic. So it seems like there's a lot of time, but the dog was just standing barking at the car, and they didn't show that the person in the car was on their cell phone at the time. Probably they wouldn't have been, but it just looks like it looks staged, which it is, but still. Plenty of time for Eric to get in there and save the dog. Let's see. We see a little bit, he kind of flashes his hologram, and again, naturally, budget reasons, we don't actually see a clear shot of the Chi, the metal upright dog skeleton. But what we see is kind of creepy, and science fiction like this has to be creepy. Like the Yeerk pool set I mentioned is very creepy. The Hork-Bajir, stiff though the puppets are, or costumes, or costume puppets, hybrids, they look creepy. Visser 3 looks creepy. So that's, for the movies, if you're listening, movies, keep it creepy. Make the morphing creepy. Make the metal dog skeleton creepy. I've always liked the dog skeleton, what little we see of it, and that we see so little. Speaking of Yeerk pools, in this episode, Chapman throws a brick into the Yeerk pool that they are using the Pemalite crystal to create a hologram to conceal. He throws the brick through the hologram and into the Yeerk pool, and it kind of makes me think back to the Face Off trilogy, where he was kind of being pushed around by Tom and the other Yeerks, and you did the General Hux thing where I don't need you to win, I just need Tom to lose. So it made me think, well, maybe Chapman doesn't care anymore about hurting Yeerks, because presumably there are Yeerks in that Yeerk pool, or maybe not yet, but throwing a brick into a Yeerk pool. A Yeerk doing that, you kind of think the Yeerk's getting tired of his superiors. Apparently, in the TV show, Eric does not have the power to project the hologram around everybody. And at first I thought they're watching the demonstration of the hologram, of the Yeerk's hologram, Cassie, Eric, and Rachel, and I thought, well, they don't have to show us. They may not have the budget special effects to show us that Eric is projecting the hologram around all three of them, but they could tell us that that's what's happening. Eric could say, "Don't worry, they can't see you," but then later on, the whole Axe part of the plan, Eric says he needs Axe's help to rescue the Pemalite crystal, and Axe's whole thing is he's building a thing, a hologram projector that, powered by the crystal, will then be able to project around everybody and protect them from being seen. So, whatever. It's there's 3 more episodes to go. Well, there's 4 more episodes as of this episode to go. It's fine. Let's see. Anything else? Axe is maybe getting to be too funny, and the Paolo Costanzo, the actor, is very funny. He's very funny on other shows as well, but it's kind of got to strike a balance. And this is another note for the movies, that Axe, especially in human form, even doing the mouth and the speaking thing and getting really excited about food, don't over funny Axe. Don't make him just a comic relief, because he's also a serious, very serious Andalite cadet, Arist, and there needs to be that element to him. So a nice balance is struck in Thor, in the Thor movies by Chris Hemsworth. That should be the model for Axe. Maybe a little less over the top even than Thor's funnier moments, but there should be a balance with Axe. Change from the book. Eric can't touch the crystal in the TV show, but he can touch it in the book. That's the whole point. He uses it to reprogram himself so that he can save the Animorphs. Not the biggest deal. And I guess I know why they had to be more explicit, but it's a really great touch that Eric is hiding as a garbage can next to a door. The Yeerks run through the door because they think that's where he is, and then he gets up and closes the door, and you see 5, 6, 7, however many Yeerks there were. There were more of them than there were of him. Come at the door, try to open it, and he's just standing there holding it all by himself. It's a very subtle, this thing is actually very strong. And then later he bends the bar to more explicitly show that he's very strong, but there should, subtle stuff like that. If you can make it explicit later on, but do the subtle stuff so that people can pick up on it. Maybe their next viewing, maybe when they're a little older, they pick up on it and they enjoy picking up on it. Because it's much more fun to pick up on something than to just have it spelled out for you. Axe's television addiction, and he gives the TV back, or says, "I don't want this anymore" at the end of the episode, but I wonder if that's because he realized what I was thinking, which was, he gets distracted watching TV very easily, and he does it in human form, I guess so that he can cook like a human with human hands. But that's a very risky thing to do. He could spend more than 2 hours watching TV as a human, and that wouldn't be good. And then on his way out of the barn, after he drops off the TV, he picks up something off the wall. It looks like kind of a brush that you would use to brush an animal, and so I wonder if he's going to go and groom himself or something. That's just something that I noticed. So, the last of the 3 for today, the front, not based on any books in the Animorphs series, and the source, the inspiration for my little joke at the beginning of the video. It's the one, if you're familiar with the series, in which Axe, and I forget if the front is the title of any Animorphs book. I should have looked that up, but I'm not going to waste time doing it now. The one where Axe gets a job at an electronics store that is selling cell phones that have Yeerks in them, and presumably portable Kandrona, it raises a lot of questions. I'll just list the questions that it raises. Do the phones have portable Kandrona and enough of whatever the Yeerks need from the fluid in the Yeerk pools to keep the Yeerks alive in case the phones don't go as fast as they are expected? Because there are a lot of Yeerks in a lot of phones. And if the Yeerks have that technology with the small Kandrona, why don't they just give it to all of the Yeerk, all of the controllers, so that they don't need to return to the pool? Because the Super Yeerks from Face Off didn't make it. Do the customers, once they are Yeerked, once they put the phones to their ears to try them out and they get Yeerked, do they still have to buy the cell phones? Because they say, one of them says, I'll get 6. Presumably she's going to pass them out to her friends. But did she have to buy all 6? Or now that she's in on the conspiracy, and because they're not real phones, does she have to pay for 6 cell phones? Maybe, I wasn't aware of how much the cell phones cost back in the late 90s. I doubt they cost as much as, say, an iPhone. And speaking of iPhones, could a Yeerk fit in an iPhone? And could Yeerks selling the iPhones, they end up giving the phones away for free at the end of the episode, because again the purpose is not to make money, it's to Yeerk people. Could they swing giving iPhones away for free, or would they pretend, like, would they build something that looks like an iPhone, like all phones these days look like iPhones, call it something else as a iPhone competitor, and would giving the iPhones away, their competitor for the iPhones away for free to get people Yeerked, would people go for those phones instead of the iPhones? Or would they think, well, if it's for free, it's not going to be nearly as good as an iPhone, so I'm going to get an old iPhone? Yeah, that's all that I wrote down, other than the joke. It was neat that they had Batmorphs, but all those questions. It's an interesting episode, completely original, and as far as the completely original contributions of these writers to the Animorphs lore, better than the whole disc thing, in my opinion. I liked it. It, again, raises a bunch of questions, logic questions, and questions about how it might work today. My understanding of the reboots of the books with the lenticular covers is that cell phones are now mentioned. They are now part of those, and eventually I'll get around to reading them. I got them back there. I should point back there rather than over at my bookshelf, where I also have some, but they're not on camera. I'll read them at some point just to see how they updated them. And in the course, the movies will be updated. But I personally have some ideas for how they could not, some of the ways where people say, well, if they just had cell phones, they wouldn't have the problem. I have been thinking about an Animorphs movie for a long time, and I have thought of solutions to cell phones being a solution to too many of the problems that the Animorphs have. So if the people writing the movie want to talk to me, again, as I've said before, I'll be the person who gets the coffee for the person who gets people coffee, if I can just work on that movie. Or I could do something else. I have a lot of skills. One more thing about that episode. The guy who runs the store, who ends up hiring Axe, who wants money, I guess, for food, but he Andalites feed on the grass, but never mind. The guy who hires Axe is, of course, a Yeerk, because he's selling phones with Yeerks in them. He's in on the conspiracy. Axe explains that the guy's sunglasses are why Axe couldn't tell that he was a Yeerk. It is never explained why the Yeerk didn't figure out in such close proximity to an Andalite, a very strangely acting human who is actually an Andalite, that he was an Andalite. But again, not a big deal. It's a fun episode. It's an interesting. It makes me wonder what else the writers could have come up with if the show had gone on longer. I don't think, well, the next 3 episodes / the last 3 in the Animorphs TV series are Changes Part 1, Changes Part 2, and Changes Part 3. And it doesn't say on Wikipedia, at least, that they are based on any particular Animorphs books. The Change is the title of number 13, I believe. The one, I had it the last time because it's the one where Tobias regains the power to morph. So I kind of know they're the ones where Tobias is chasing that hawk graffiti, and I don't remember much more than that. But the front, the cell phone plot makes me wonder if the writers of the TV show had been able to go on and they'd had more opportunities to stray from the source material, they could have come up with probably some good stuff. I can see it getting better as it went along, but it didn't. It is its own thing. It's encapsulated in 26 episodes. And now I'm just rambling. So I'm going to say, join me Friday for the exciting conclusion of this looking back at Animorphs on TV, and ram the blade ship.